little melody thing I just came up with that I like. Makes a nice little thing for some improv. Maybe you could even call it a song. If I wrote it down, I guess it'd be a song. Start off with the melody. Actually span an octave, which isn't normal for a melody. You certainly couldn't do that very easily vocally. That's one version. The version I came up with that I like better goes. Or I think the one I really landed on was the one that goes down to the C. So we got E, F, G, F, E, C, D, E, E, D. So spanning an octave both times. And we're going to put a C minor chord on the left hand, followed by a G minor. I think it's minor. We'll see. So, I mean, if you think about it in terms of the chords, it's pretty natural if you're going to start with an E flat note. Giving it a C minor chord makes a lot of sense. That's just nicely spaced, good tonality to start with, this nice open sound. And of course, you've got the tension point is the 4, which makes sense because, we all know that sus4s are tension point. So in a melody, the tension point really comes up and you leap up to that painful part of the melody. And then there's these two transitional notes. We're kind of just going down into a repeat. It's kind of a call and response sort of thing. And we're doing this G, which of course doesn't belong with a C note. So a little bit of a kind of a dull tension, you might say. Whereas this one is the cry of pain. This other one is more of a dull kind of settling into this. It's just where we live now. It's not actually a sharp pain. So I like that result. That's I think the term might be motif for something that you repeat over and over. A kind of a story, a musical story that you tell once and then you can kind of keep repeating it to make up the song. So that's what I came up with. Oops. And then I decided to transition into some low-key, chord-based, whatever you feel like, of switching from the C minor chord to an F minor chord. And I don't have any reason for that. It just seemed to work well. So you do that last bit that I just did. You do the melody once, you do the melody twice, and then you jump to. And then maybe you do that again. Then you're back to it. Then we're back to the other part. And every time you do the F chord, I tend to like to have a third of the F minor scale being part of that, because it kind of gives it that assonant or consonant, whatever the term is, the harmonious kind of sound. That's a nice melody. It's basically a third split up in a more not very tight together kind of context. Open, that's the word I was looking for. And then after doing, so if we do the one set of 2 bits of the melody, and then we do maybe a set of 4 of just the chords doing whatever in kind of a backgroundy kind of way, and then you come back to those 2 sets of the melody again, and then after doing some interlude, then I think it's kind of cool just to take that same melody and put it up into the upper octaves. Now I wish that I could do this. Actually, that doesn't even sound that good. Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, that doesn't even sound so good. I was thinking it'd be nice to do it in sixths, but now that I actually try it, which I can't do because my sixth, I can't do sixths very quickly, so I can't do a proper fast melody with sixths, because that's something I'm still working on, getting my ability to do scales like that. But anyway, that doesn't even sound as good. It sounds much better to just that's about as far as I got. But anyway, it's fun to come up with. I used to, every time I improvised, it used to be that every time I improvised, I would be trying to make it all up while going. But one thing I've discovered that makes it a lot more fulfilling is to come up with an actual melody or something, some little tiny bit that I'm going to repeat, and then have some kind of structure with a set number of chords that repeat in some kind of logical fashion. And it makes it much more satisfying. Not that I never do it the other way, but I think it's one of those things where learning to do it in a more structured, more robotic way, more systematic way, it makes it so that not only can you do the systematic kind of thing, which sounds better, but then when you go back to the kind of freestyle, unstructured version, you have more ability because you'll be doing some of those things, or you think in that way a little more naturally. So then when I do go back to, just making stuff up on the fly, random melodies and stuff, I think I'm better at it, partly because I started doing it this way a lot of the time. But one thing that I definitely have found very satisfying is just coming up with little melodies and then doing something consistently with them. And if I was going to write that into a song, obviously I would put in a little more nuance, than that. And I would probably give it an ending of some kind, maybe. You don't have to have an ending. Something that's nice to end something just by, well, what's really nice, what I've done a couple times in things that I've written, is where you start with something and you don't repeat it at all. You repeat other stuff and then you end with what you started with. I love that effect. But of course, it only has that effect if the person's actually listening to the whole thing or playing the whole thing. But anyway. And one of the funny things with coming up with melodies is you don't always know to what extent it's truly original, or you might be partly influenced by something you've heard. As I was playing it, something about that second part of the melody, not so much once you add the chord, particularly that second portion, it's kind of similar to a bit of a melody from a soundtrack of a computer game. The old 1998 Age of Empires had a guitar picking style piece of the soundtrack that sounded a little bit like that. And so I think I'm doing a little bit of imitation, but it's not the same. It's not like a copyright infringement kind of thing where it's just, sometimes melodies just sound similar, and sometimes you have something in your head and you're kind of imitating part of it, but either you can't, or you can't imitate it exactly, which sometimes is part of what happens, but other times, you're influenced by it, but you're not copying it. And I've heard some people say creativity, whether you're writing stories or music or what, creativity is really kind of, there are only a finite number of kinds of things that can go into a creative thing. So being a creative person is kind of like taking bits of things that other people have already done and doing it in a better or a new way. So it's not like you want to try to be completely original. There's only so many notes on the piano, and there's only so many kinds of combinations of notes. So really, it's just call and response. I suppose probably part of what I'm hearing that makes me think, it sounds like that other song is really just the fact that you have an arpeggio-ish kind of sound that echoes itself, or it does a call and response, A minor third lower. That's probably the only part that it has in common with that other thing I'm thinking of. But anyway, that's something that I'm thinking of once in a while when I dabble in making up melodies, is kind of thinking, okay, could I accidentally, because the creative process with music, more so than with, I mean, really with most kinds of creativity, but especially with music, it's really very, like it creates itself. You know, you just come up with it. And I feel, you know, definitely sometimes, especially with lyrical songs, vocal songs, I'll come up with it and I'll change it so many times that there's no question that this is completely original, because I saw the process of every little evolution as I modified it more toward the feel that I want. But